all about. Jamie, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. I think that 8 billion money that you just talked about, maybe they can pay for all the hotels that all the migrants are coming in.
That would be a start, wouldn't it? Well, I'm saying, why don't they build a load of houses? They've got 200,000 acres in Britain, right? Or in England, probably. They could build a lot of houses on 200,000 acres. They could get rid of the migrant problem in one fell swoop.
Indeed, Mike. But yeah, going back to kind of Welsh Wales then. And
yes.
What's
going on with Adam Price?
Yeah, well, it's another nationalist party. We've got the SNP in meltdown in Scotland. We've got the Nationalist Party in Wales in meltdown.
Yes.
So kind of a report's been done on Plaid Cymru. They was kind of looking into some complaints that have been made, and it's come out basically saying there's a culture of misogyny, harassment and bullying within the party, and there's been allegations of sexual assault and a toxic working culture.
Blimey.
Now, he came out last week saying he was going to continue to carry on as the leader to try and implement some of the findings of the report, but I think his position has just become untenable, Mike. And the thing is that in Wales, you've got Drakeford hasn't got a majority within the Senedd, so Plaid Cymru are pretty much propping up Welsh Labour to get policies through. So, absolute carnage, Mike. And this isn't good. We want politics to be cleaned up, and this isn't good for kind of the culture in the party there.
Isn't it interesting that there are so many similarities, though, between, as you say, the SNP and Plaid Cymru, where it became a sort of cult of personality, didn't it? And the person who runs the party is kind of God to everybody in the party, and all sorts of things go on around them, and they seem to not know about them. I mean, has he got a hidden motorhome somewhere as well?
Well, who knows on that one, Mike? But I think that one of the kind of the good things in Wales, I'm a big believer in the union, is that kind of the nationalist movement in Wales is not as much as it is in Scotland. So obviously, with Plaid Cymru nowhere near trying to get an independent Wales referendum coming in, because it's not kind of supported as much in Wales. But yeah, these things just, you need to clean politics up. All parties are in a bit of a crisis at the moment, Mike, and this is just another one of them.
Well, it really is. And so who's likely to take over? Is there going to be an election process? What happens?
Yeah, so they're talking about getting somebody in by the summer. There doesn't seem to be anybody, really standing out. I think we had Leanne Wood, who was the leader. She had a lot of kind of coverage because of the leaders' debates, and she was on a lot of the national ones.
Right.
So she was the previous person in charge. But I've struggled to think, Mike, with politics, you need somebody confident, but you need somebody with a bit of a personality and gravitas to push things. I can't really see anybody myself who's really standing out, but I'm sure they'll sort something out over the summer.
And meanwhile, let's talk briefly about the NHS in Wales, because, of course, the Tories are constantly under attack for not sorting out the NHS in England. But the Welsh NHS is in an even worse state, isn't it?
Yeah, well, this is one of the things. Wes Streeting goes along on all his, commentaries across the kind of the studios, across the different channels in England, always slagging off and attacking the NHS and other Tories who undermine the NHS. And you're right, in Wales, it's no better. It's no good at all. We've had reports over the last few years of people in Wales going off to Europe for tourism because of the waiting list. So I think the thing I always say with the Welsh NHS, Mike, is Starmer talks about reforming the NHS. They've got a perfect kind of candidacy to do that in Wales, to show us how are you going to reform the Labour Party, the NHS, do it in Wales, show us if it works. Great, you'll have a landslide if you can deliver that. Right. But they've done absolutely nothing in Wales, Mike.
Well, waiting times for everything, I think, are longer than they are in England. The shortages of doctors and nurses are longer and bigger than they are in England. And all the deliveries of all sorts of different types of healthcare take longer as well.
And also, Mike, we've just had, there was a fraud investigation going on in North Wales for the Betsy Cadwalla Health Board. I think £100 million kind of unaccounted for in the books.
Oh, great.
And the NHS fraud team have just dropped the investigation. It's like, crack on. So, public money, we don't care. It's just scandalous, Mike, scandalous.
I'll tell you what's also scandalous, I want to touch on this with you, is the Whitehall situation with these Brexit rules. Something like 4,000 plus EU laws which should have been abandoned, should have been chucked on the bonfire of inanities. It turns out none of that's happened because Kemi Badenoch says Whitehall won't let it happen, and they don't want it to happen, so they're just simply refusing to make it happen.
Now, this one doesn't surprise me. I was working kind of in Whitehall myself a few years back, and after kind of Brexit happening, you could see, the one thing with Brexit, Mike, just to kind of start there, is Cameron didn't think it was going to happen. So the civil service, literally, when the vote happened, there were literally zero plans to implement Brexit because they just didn't think it was going to happen. Cameron thought, this would shut it up. So I'm not surprised you've got civil servants not going to push this through. We had the vote in 2016. We left in 2020. Yeah. We're coming up, it'll be 2024 before tomorrow, before we know it. And we're still not delivering Brexit. People say, what's the implications of Brexit overall? Well, we haven't really had a Brexit, have we? We haven't really delivered on what
Not at all. And I mean,
and that's the big problem.
And Kerry Badenoch, business secretary, saying that they're hoping to get rid of 600 EU laws soon, but that's less than a sixth of the number that they should be getting rid of.
And the thing, the purpose of Brexit was, isn't it, obviously to take back control not just of the borders, and we got the Channel migrants coming over, as you said. It was to take back control of our laws as well and do things differently. And we're pretty much doing the same as what we were doing when we were in the EU, Mike.
Yeah, got a note here from Mark who says maybe we're keeping the 4,000 plus EU laws to make it easier for when Labour takes us back into Europe. And frankly speaking, knowing what we know about Keir Starmer, the more he says he doesn't want to do it, the more likely it will happen.
Well, the thing with Starmer, Mike, is he is the king of the U-turn, isn't he? I think all the policies he said he was going to potentially push forward when he got the candidacy and got elected as leader, well, he's rolled back on pretty much all of those. I think Emily Thornberry last night on our Peston show was saying she'd repeal this immigration bill that's going through if they get in. But I guarantee Starmer, if he's for it or against it, whichever way the wind's blowing will determine Keir Starmer's policy, Mike, and we don't know what way the wind's going to be blowing if he wins the election. I mean,
between now and the next election, which people seem to think is about 15 months' time, and I'll ask you about that in a second, he could have flip-flopped about four times.
Well, the thing is, he wants to try and appeal to everybody, but obviously the electorate is divisive. I mean, people don't support kind of the right and the left. I'm not sure there is a right and a left in politics anymore. It might seem to be a right and a wrong.
Yeah.
And for me, with Starmer, it comes back to things, his pledges to reform the NHS. We'll say, show us in Wales how you're going to do that. All these policies, there's nothing really substantive. And I think Starmer will win the next election, Mike, but it's not because people want Starmer. You look at the local election results, you compare the results that he got, which was good for the Labour, compared to what Tony Blair got before he won a landslide. Nowhere near the support for the Labour Party and the Starmer as what you had under Blair. And if they do win the election, Mike, or get a hung parliament, it'll be more a case of people fed up with the Tories rather than thinking there's this real good Labour Party.
You're exactly right on that, because Times Radio actually did a poll yesterday and they found that of all the people who didn't vote Tory on Thursday of last week in the local elections, the big majority of them didn't vote Tory because they didn't think the Tories were doing a very good job. It wasn't because they particularly wanted to vote Labour.
And that's pretty much where we are with politics. Same in America, Mike. If Trump and Biden stand, most people probably vote for Trump because they don't like Biden, and people who vote for Biden because they don't like Trump. We need to start getting politicians running these countries with real good ideas to push countries forward, rather than a kind of a protest vote against the party you don't like.
No, exactly right. Absolutely. Listen, great to talk to you, Jamie. Thank you very much indeed. Jamie Jenkins, social commentator there, with his view on what's going to happen at the next election, which is probably, as we say, something like between 12 and 15 months away. Jackie says, didn't the Archbishop of Woke close the church doors during COVID? He wasn't so welcoming to all of them then. One from Johnny in Sevenoaks, who says, we stopped going to church when they erected a BLM poster on the church notice board, Church of Woke. I mean, absolutely right. Welby and the Lords are repeating the obfuscation of the will of the British people, just like they did with Brexit. We are being continually gaslighted and dictated to by a geriatric nursing home, which we have to pay for. And that's another one from Jackie. Well, listen, there's no question that we have to sort out the migration problem in this country, both legal and illegal. There's no question that the Archbishop of Woke will never, ever agree with putting any limitations on the numbers coming, because he thinks that it's our duty to house them. I've got 3 Ukrainians will become the mantra of the Church of England. Unbelievable. Well, how about housing some homeless people in this country? How about helping some veterans out? How about building some houses in the land that you own? How about using some of the $8 billion in your investment fund to help people instead of mouthing off in the world's biggest echo chamber? Unbelievable. Planks. This is TalkTV.